Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour, sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing and That's Badass Wood Art. Remember to use promo code CT Pocket for any one item, 20% off at that'sbadasswoodart.com. And if you're here watching the show, help us hit our goal of 3,000 subscribers by the NFL draft. We're pretty close, and we can only get there with your help. So, guys, how was your weekend? Not a whole lot of news, but some that we get to talk about this morning or this evening. God, I all over the place already. But how are you guys doing tonight?
You're doing well, yeah. Weekend was good. Just took some time to relax, spent some time with the family, watched some college basketball. Can't ask for much more than that. Friday was interesting because I actually took the day off to do that, drink with some friends down in Mankato, and I was just waiting on my phone all day because I thought there was going to be some big news dropping, and nothing ended up coming to fruition outside of
What are you talking about? Davenport?
some basic stuff. Well, yeah, I mean, but that was already known, right? Like, I was hoping for like a bomb, like Dalvin Cook something, or a Daniil Hunter something, or something, something that would have been interesting to hear. But
Dean Lowry didn't do it for you?
Dean Lowry did not quite move the needle enough for me, but I am happy that he's here. I think that was a good ad. How about you, Miles? How was the weekend?
Weekend was good. We actually kept it pretty low key, which was nice. I like low key weekends because sometimes with kids and everything, you get crazy. And we kind of kept around the house. We ran some errands and had to buy the kids some new clothes, all that junk because they're growing, all that fun stuff.
I know Miles is having a good weekend because it's a Monday night and he's just like casually sipping wine. No big deal.
Yeah, man. I was telling you guys, I haven't been like drinking much lately. I mean, this is just like a small glass of wine, but like I haven't really been like drinking, like, so. But this tastes good.
Well, we'll have to hit up Lake Monster and see when they're gonna start making wine, so
Yeah.
So we can get some bottles in here.
Matt,
Miles,
I'm surprised to see that you're still alive after the hot ones this weekend.
Oh my God! I tell you what, have you guys done that before? The hot ones challenge? I don't do good with spice. Jalapenos send me into a tizzy, but I feel like I did pretty well for the first 3 or 4. There were 10 flavors.
30%.
And then, I mean, I don't know if you guys are even familiar with the Hot Ones Challenge on YouTube, but they have like the infamous one called Da Bomb. And that one about sent me over. But I only had 2 left after that. So I'm like, I'm going to finish this hell or high water. I sent you guys pictures. I was dripping in sweat. I'm still.
So did you guys just made your own wings and then just use the sauce, or like?
Yep.
So did you just do like a dab of the sauce on it, or did you drench it in the sauce?
No, just a dab.
Coward.
Okay. Well, this last
for the first couple, I might have done that, but yeah, I got you.
The last one that we took, it was 2.5 million Scoville units, which like I can't even. I'm getting like triggered just talking about it because it was that bad, but it was painful, and so was the next day. But anyway, we don't have to talk about that. In fact, I'd much rather.
We don't want to talk about
this point.
Talk about your drunk tweeting too on over the weekend, or are we just going to leave that?
We can just leave that for another conversation. Let's talk about somebody you've already brought up on the show, Miles, and that's the signing of Dean Lowry away from the Green Bay Packers. What were your guys'? We know Ryan's initial thought. He's not impressed. So I'll start with Miles. Miles, what was your initial thought to the Dean Lowry signing?
I think I tweeted out the other day. I think it's a nice low risk move. It's basically like a 2-year fully guaranteed deal. I mean, yes, they technically can get out of it, but I don't unless he plays like extremely poorly or gets hurt. I don't expect them to need to get out of it. It's a pretty, low level deal. Sub $5 million for a guy that can get, do a decent job getting to the quarterback. And I'd mentioned he is one of that traditional 3-4 defensive end that the Vikings don't really have. I mean, Ross Blacklock, Otomo, those guys are kind of like hybrids a little bit. And then he's essentially replacing a little, like, I don't mean like word for like player for player, but he's basically like the Dalvin Tomlinson replacement. Now, Dalvin Tomlinson probably was. I don't want to say he was playing out of position in the 3-4, but he's been like he's more of like he's just that good and versatile that he could play well in a 3-4 as a defensive end. But I would liken him to more of a true nose tackle or a 3-tech, like in that more versatile world than he is a true defensive end in a 3-4. But that's where I see Dean Lowry being more of that like traditional, not 290 pounds, 6'6" long. He's a super long player. And so like he might not be as good against the run, but he's better against, generating more pressure from the inside. And I know he had a down year in 2022, but he has familiarity with the Vikings. One of the defensive coaches, Mike Smith, when he was in Green Bay. And Dean Lowry was good in 2021. Was actually really good in 2021. I think 42 pass pressures, like 5 sacks. Like, so there's ability there. And I think the Vikings are I think they're taking this approach to the free agency so far in general is they're kind of taking swings on guys that have had the like pendulum swing up.
Yeah.
And then maybe last year it kind of swung down and they kind of had a down year. So they're kind of betting on the coaching and the training staff being able to swing it back up again. You have that with Dean Lowry. You got that with Byron Murphy. You got that with Marcus Davenport. I don't count Josh Oliver in that just because we haven't seen but his blocking is obviously really good. So I think they've taken that type of approach.
You talked about the money aspect there a little bit, and it is a relatively cheap deal here for Dean Lowry. And just when we're talking about the cap hits, we got $2 million, a little over $2 million for this year, $4.6 million for 2024. And so for me personally, seeing that
and 2 void years,
and yes, in 2 void years, but for me seeing that stuff, I don't know. I mean, I'm not like getting excited about it by any means, and I don't think that fans necessarily should, but I think we should be satisfied to have a rotational pass rusher with upside who's shown that he can do well in this league. Ryan, are you still on the?
And he fits the system. And he fits the system. I think, like, real quick before Ryan, you jump in, the Vikings.
We can cut Ryan out. We don't need him this episode.
Well, what I wanted, like last year, the Vikings defensive players were like a lot of holdovers from Zim, and obviously that was under Ed Donatel, but it's still a shift to the 3-4. Brian Flores is still keeping that 3-4 base. So you're finally starting to see that shift to some players that actually fit more of this true scheme than just keeping the old players that were in the building. So I think you're kind of seeing that shift as well.
All right.
Permission granted, Ryan. You can go.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, again, like I said, it's not that I didn't like the signing. It was just that it wasn't like a high profile move, right? Which I think we're probably going to see the rest of the way throughout the offseason is we'll probably see some lower end moves. If we do make a big splash, it's going to probably be via a trade, right? Like trading a Dalvin Cook away, like a big name that we're all used to seeing, right? So I don't expect to be a ton left out there, but so Dean Lowry, yes, to Miles's point, fits the scheme well, can get after the quarterback well. Obviously not the best run defender in the world, but you'll take what you can get because pass rush at this point is almost more important, and being able to generate that pressure, because obviously we have guys who can get that pressure from the outside, so we need to get some internal pressure as well and get after quarterback that way. I think he's going to do a great job of that. So excited about the move, and as much as you can be for a mid-level signing of a former Packer.
I think I saw Ted Glover out there say that we fulfilled our obligatory sign one Packer each offseason. So we're good for that this year. Another guy that some news kind of broke this past weekend, we haven't recapped on it, but Marcus Davenport officially signs with the Vikings with his deal. Miles, you were listening to a podcast and heard something about what the true holdup was?
Yeah, so I was listening to the forgive me if I don't remember exactly what they call it, but the Star Tribune's podcast with Andrew Kramer, Ben Gessling, and someone remind me of the third. I apologize.
I am blanking.
Michael Rand. Michael Rand.
Yes.
So those three usually do a podcast maybe every couple of weeks for the Star Tribune, but Ben Gessling always does a great job dropping a lot of hints and notes and kind of scoops in a way. And he was talking about the Marcus Davenport situation, and he mentioned that when they had originally had all three guys set to have a press conference last week, Byron Murphy, Josh Oliver, and Marcus Davenport. But he mentioned with Davenport, they had initially pushed the press conference back an hour. I think he got the news that the Vikings were still working through the contract because at the current number that they had structured him at, he didn't fit under the cap. So they couldn't get the deal done. So they had to go back to the drawing board, not to change how much they're giving him, but they had to change the structure of the deal. And so, because they guaranteed him or told him how much money he was going to get up front, they can't just go back and try to renege on that and change that deal when they'd agreed to parameters of it. So I think what they did there was they went back to the drawing board and really had to drop that. They had to push as much of that money into the future as they could. And that's why the four void years came in. His cap hits $5 million this year, but I think he got an $8 or $9 million signing bonus. And essentially that dead money, that void, he might, if he isn't re-signed next year, it'll be $7-something million against the 2024 cap. And if he is signed to an extension, that $7-something million will be spread out through the course of the rest of whatever new deal would be. So that money's staying with the Vikings no matter what happens. And so that's probably something they didn't want to do, but because of the cap situation, and we haven't really talked about it, but Zadarius Smith is still a Minnesota Viking.
I was going to bring that up to you tonight.
His roster bonus on Friday was guaranteed. It was $5 million and change.
Yep.
We haven't heard anything otherwise. I think the only way they could get that money off the books now is a trade, because they can't cut him, and because that money's now guaranteed. And I don't know whatever the installments are on the payments, but so they're in a situation now where maybe they're rolling with Zadarius Smith, Danielle Hunter, Marcus Davenport, Dean Lowry, and Harrison Phillips as the core, 3-5 linemen. I know outside linebackers, but in the base 3-4 as the rushers and stuff. So maybe that's the play. I don't know, but Zadarius Smith's still here.
With no house, by the way. He still has no house in Minnesota.
Did it sell that quickly? I mean, just one day on the market.
It sounds like it. Doogie mentioned it. It sounds like it sold pretty quick.
Wow.
The report was that he sold his house. So, I mean, yeah. I think you bring up some good points, Ryan and Miles, that there probably is some news that we're kind of still waiting on for resolution. Obviously, we haven't heard anything about a Brian O'Neill restructure, which I thought was going to be one of the first things we heard about this offseason. We did hear about Harrison Smith last week, and you can catch that on a previous episode we had. But yeah, as far as big time free agents too, they're kind of dissipating. But one that's really kind of surprised me that we haven't addressed yet is the wide receiver position. Ryan, I know you've been pounding the table for DJ Chark this offseason. Are there any other names that we should look out for the Vikings to potentially go after that would be good fit on this team?
Well, Doogie had mentioned that we're having initial conversations with Mecole Hardman. Again, essentially what we really need to do is add some speed, right? Because you have Justin Jefferson who has some speed. KJ Osborne has some speed, but we don't have anyone that can really stretch the field. They're obviously Justin Jefferson can stretch the field, but he's doing so many other things that you need somebody who's consistently being able to do that. That's why I like Chark, because he can get upfield. He's a big body target who can, probably bring down quite a few 50-50 balls if given the opportunity. Mecole Hardman, he's a player that can, I guess, do the same, but that's just not how he has been used. So I don't know if you're going to utilize him in that same way. The Kansas City Chiefs probably use him the best way they possibly could, which is more in the slants and in the reverses and more of the gadget type plays that you will see, screens, things like that. Get the ball in his hands and let him move. And so while that still adds speed to the team, it doesn't necessarily address the downfield threat that we're necessarily looking for, or that I'm necessarily looking for. So, I mean, there's other guys. Darius Slayton, Miles, I know you mentioned him a few times, as probably more of a low key signing.
He got signed he went back to the Giants.
Oh, did he really? I missed that.
Yeah. Okay,
so scratch that. And then I was going to say, is Marvin Jones available?
Mm-hmm.
So again, another player, kind of bigger body, jump ball type receiver that can go and stretch the field with a bigger target.
He's the guy for me that I think, because they wanted to keep Adam Thielen, it sounds like, at least from like hey, you're in a situation where if you stay, you're gonna have a reduced role, but like we still want you. I feel like Marvin Jones could kind of fit that similar type of role and be a little bit more of a true X receiver than Adam Thielen is in the later part of his career. I think Marvin Jones can still win on the outside, wins those jump balls, like you said, and be a good red zone target. So maybe he's someone that you get cheap, but they still need to address it in the first couple of rounds in the draft because the long term, right? But like, I'd have no problem taking a flyer. I thought Mac Hollins would have been a good option too. He went to the Falcons. I think a couple other names like Olamide Zaccheaus from the Falcons. He's a little bit more of a field stretcher. Nelson Aguilar, I know he was just visiting the Ravens, but he can stretch the field. Again, some of these guys are like flyers, like they're low level flyers, but at the same time, you still need to bring. They still need to bring in probably at least one vet body, but maybe there's a few guys out there that have like ability, and then still invest in the draft.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what that's kind of what Purple Haze is saying here, just drafting a wide receiver for cheap, which I do agree with. I mean, there are a lot of guys in the NFL draft that the Vikings could easily target that would complement Justin Jefferson perfectly in a variety of different ways.
And two mid-round guys would be awesome too. I mean, I know 100%. if we like swing and miss on some of these guys we're talking about, and they don't bring somebody in, a couple mid-round guys would be great. Jonathan Mingo kind of fits the bill of what we're looking for, who ran like a 4.45 4.46. Okay, yeah, big body. Sure hands. I mean, he had a couple drops at the Senior Bowl, but outside of that, watching tape, he doesn't drop it nearly as much. Some people like to do the Ole Miss connection and compare him to AJ Brown. I don't know if he's that, but
similar body style and
AJ Brown light until he proves otherwise. And then you could also go get another field stretcher. I think somebody said A.T. Perry. Dan Henneman put in A.T. Perry. That's definitely a guy to look at. Trey Palmer from Nebraska. Marvin Mims, obviously I've mentioned him before.
Wait, what?
Oh, weird.
Marvin Mims?
But there's quite a few guys in the draft, especially mid-rounds, that I'd be very happy with. And I think a couple of them could really develop into a solid wide receiver too.
Random thought I just had. When we took Jarius Wright and Greg Childs back in the day, were they like not back-to-back picks, but like back-to-back Viking selections?
Mm-hmm. I think so, yeah.
They were both. So 2 things on that. They were both 4th-round picks.
Yep.
That is 2012 was the last time the Vikings have spent a pick between rounds 2nd and through 4 on a wide receiver, and since 2012. So it's either been the 1st round or like late day 3, 5th round, 6th, 7th. They have not spent a pick. When, especially around the league right now, where the 2nd, 3rd round, especially, players are really hitting at wide receiver in those rounds, and the Vikings just have not participated. I've been banging the drum for that for a while. Like, obviously they drafted Justin Jefferson, but like if they had traded back and drafted somebody in the 2nd round, like a Michael Pittman or a T. Higgins, like I was always cool with that too. But like Marvin Mims at the time, Denzel Mims at the time.
We're just trying to speak the Marvin Mims thing into existence here.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to hear it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, go get, the Vikings. So the one thing the Vikings have had the last 6, 7 years is a two-headed monster at wide receiver. It's okay to have more than just 2 good receivers. You need to have more than 2, especially in today's NFL.
Yeah, especially now.
And KJ Osborne's a really good wide receiver 3, so I'm not trying to like diminish that. But his future in Minnesota's up in the air. And so like for me, that's why, to your point, Ryan, draft 2 wide receivers in the middle rounds. Like, the Packers, like, say what you will about the Packers and like not drafting a wide receiver in the 1st round, which to me is but they've always attacked that position. Like they've always drafted guys on day 2, day 3 constantly. Like they're just constantly drafting guys in the middle rounds, and they find guys that stick. And I feel like you got to throw as much as you can at that position like that because of how important wide receiver is.
Yeah. A couple comments there, and I might have already Lost it. Okay, KJ Osborne. I almost lost it there for a second. You mentioned him being a wide receiver 3, which we can argue that on a different day. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I do think it's important to note that he signed with a new representation last week, and he's also going into the final year of his rookie deal. That would tell me at this point that he's likely gearing up to maybe test free agency in a year from now, which then goes back to both of your points of taking a couple mid-round receivers in the draft this year to ensure that we have somebody actually opposite Justin Jefferson. Because right now, beyond this year, there are no wide receivers under contract besides Jalen Naylor and Justin Jefferson. So a couple other Viking notes we can get to and then round out the show. They obviously re-signed Udoh and Austin Schlottman to the offensive line for depth. Not splashy moves by any means, but important. Any thoughts from you two on that?
Yeah, I love the moves. I think Udoh
Love.
is yeah. I mean, again, for as much as you can love, a couple backup linemen, but I think Udoh is a fantastic backup to have on roster. He can play all 4 positions outside of center, right? And I think he plays tackle at a relatively high rate. Like he's pretty strong at tackle. So I think that having him in a pinch, especially with Brian O'Neill recovering from that injury, you have that option to take it slow with him and and put Udoh in, who can play well in those spots. So I love that move. Austin Schlottman, again, familiarity with the offense. In the pinch that he was playing before he got hurt, I thought he played adequately for a backup center. So again, low level deals, not overly expensive. I think, great additions. So we don't have to, again, another reason we don't have to be forced to be taking any certain positions in the draft.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of feel the same way there. Miles, are you any different?
Yeah. So I know the news and some of the contract details haven't come out for a few of these guys like Udoh, but his deal seems like remember what Rashad Hill was signing for the couple years there? I can't remember what it's called, but it's a veteran cap. I can't remember the name, but essentially it's the player themselves get a little over $2 million guaranteed, but they only account toward a vet minimum against the salary. There's a name for it. It's newer the last couple of years, but the Vikings did it with Rashad Hill. You have to have spent at least 4 years with your existing team to qualify for it.
Okay.
But essentially, you get paid $2 million, but you only count toward $1 million against the cap. So it kind of benefits the player and the team. And you could do it with, I think, 1 or 2 players every year if they qualify.
Well, I'm sorry we kind of left you there without any answer for what this is, because I can't find it.
I'm trying to. Yeah, I know. Someone tweeted it out, and I'm trying to remember who it was that I was talking to. Maybe it was Steez.
But yeah, I mean,
Steezo.
Depth moves for the offensive line, and I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about it. It's been a good balance this free agency with the Vikings, going after guys who can contribute with Brian Murphy, Marcus Davenport, but then also adding these key depth positions, because we know that this roster had a bunch of holes. And I think it was you, Ryan. I think it was you last week on the show mentioning, or maybe it was one of our viewers mentioning, that these types of moves will allow us to stay flexible in the draft.
Yep.
In draft best player available, which I think is going to be super important for this team.
And again, best player available within a certain parameters, right? You're not going to, if the best player is on offensive tackle, you're likely not going to do that. But yeah, it gives you the opportunity to take the best available player that of somewhat need on your board, and have that. One thing I wanted to mention, Miles, what do you got?
Put your hand down, Miles.
It's called the player benefit calculation. That's what
there you go.
Player benefit calculation for 4-year player qualifying contracts.
Boom.
Well, there you
We
go.
got it.
Learn something new every day. I was going to just quick address Dan Henneman. He had mentioned, he still hopes that we draft a guy like Rick Stromberg. I think he's very specifically saying Ricky Stromberg in the mid-round area. Now, one thing I want to say about Dan is I think he does, over the last couple of years, he's been watching the show. Again, appreciate you tuning in, every week that you do. He's been pretty spot on with a lot of his evaluations on the offensive line. I mean, he's been a huge advocate for guys who we didn't draft, and they've gone on to play really well. Most notably Creed Humphrey, who I was also on, of course. But like he's been really strong. So viewers, if you're interested in offensive lineman, go check out Ricky Stromberg out of Arkansas. He's a good player.
I love the shout out for the fans there, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Dan's been an OG. He's been with us for a while. So I appreciate that. A few other comments in here. Imagine Zay Flowers or Johnston falling to 23 and you don't take them.
We love Zay Flowers on this show.
Yes,
Sure.
we do.
I'll take either guy though. I like both guys are like late first for me, early seconds. So like if you have to take him at 23, I'm not going to freak out about it.
And then just some back and forth banter here in the comments. The last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, no longer a Minnesota Viking, but just curious, quick 2 minutes, your thoughts. Adam Thielen to the Carolina Panthers on a 3-year deal because he, quote, thinks they can win the Super Bowl. What do you, well, I think I know your answer just off the chuckle, but what do you think, Ryan?
What else are you going to say in an interview on Pat McAfee's show, I guess? But
just acknowledge that you're going for the money.
Yeah,
like, that's all this was ever about.
I agree, but
money and opportunity.
It's not very Christianly to just talk about the money. You got to talk about the opportunity. So, no,
he wasn't doing that.
All jokes aside, I'm happy for him. Honestly, like he took an opportunity to go and get a bag, and he got that. At 33 years old, good for him. He's going to get a lot of opportunity there to prove us wrong in terms of lessening his role on this offense, apparently, or at least that's what's been reported or rumored to a reason why he wanted to leave. I don't understand why people are upset with him and trying to bash him. I can understand his wife because apparently she's just been a, horror on not a whore, a pain in the butt on social media.
Now I gotta go.
No.
Video is explicit.
She's been very nice to me in the couple of interactions I've had with her, so I don't have any ill will towards her. But I don't understand the hate that he's getting. Sure, whatever. You're not going to win a Super Bowl there. We know that. You don't have the facilities to be able to do that at this point in time. But you got to pump up your team. You got to try to instill confidence in Andy Dalton, I guess, and the rookie that's going to come in. So. Whatever. I don't take much of that. He went for the money, and I'm happy for him for getting it. So,
there's a comment in the chat asking if we saw what Chad Johnson said about Adam Thielen. Did you guys see that? I have not.
I didn't either. No.
I can only imagine.
I'll have to go and take a look.
You know what? I think he was talking about his route running, how smooth he was with his route running. He runs
that's right. Similar to Arian Foster.
Yeah, Arian Foster. Just kind of.
He doesn't always look like he's moving fast, but he does because it's just smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody said no wasted movements, and I'm like, well, what about the movements when he was going opposite when he's trying to get more yards, but he's going the wrong way? There's some wasted movements there. But again, I appreciate everything he did for us. Happy for him to get the bag.
I think it just clarified everything we were hearing though. Is it wasn't always just about the money; it was mainly about the opportunity and him proving that he was still an alpha. And I think that was a big part of it for him. And he wasn't going to get to do that at Kansas City, Dallas. He was going to some of these other teams, Denver, maybe Denver, but some of these other teams that he had said he had heard interest from. Carolina gets to go, and it's Terrace Marshall right now. That's his main competition for targets, and Hayden Hurst. And so at 33, the money they paid him, they're going to give him an opportunity to be the number one guy in that room. So. Again, to your point, I don't like the Super Bowl thing. That's just him trying to deflect, I think. But whatever. I still think I think that Carolina team is like has some talent on it.
Yeah.
Like
For
I
sure.
don't think they're like
Very
going to
good
be like
defense.
a bottom. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be a bottom barrel team if the rookie plays well enough. But like they have a good coach. I like Frank Reich. I think he's a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
And this will give Adam Thielen the opportunities he wanted to prove that the injuries were what were holding him back.
Absolutely. Well, that's all I got for tonight's show. So I want to thank you guys for hopping on per usual. For everyone in the comments, thank you so much for joining us and firing up the comments. We
need this Wolves dub, man. We need this Wolves dub. Pull it out.
Make a note on your phone, on your fridge, wherever you set your reminders. Tomorrow night at 8:00, we have Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings joining us to get his thoughts on the Vikings offseason thus far, as well as the Vikings potentially being wild card players in the Lamar Jackson sweepstake. So make sure you tune in to that tomorrow night. And remember, if you're here, hit like, hit subscribe, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell your family. We want to hit that 3,000 subs by the NFL draft. So your help is appreciated. But until next time, everybody, Skol Vikings.